without further ado, I'm gonna announce here Boris, who's gonna tell you what's gonna be new in CloudStack 4.18. Warm welcome, please.
Thank you very much, guys. Before we go to 4.18, I would just like to say a few words. I really love the fact that we are in Sofia, in my hometown. It's a real great pleasure for me. It's an honor, and I really hope you guys have fun and enjoy the conference. And maybe now it's also a good time to say thanks again to our sponsors. They are really making it for this event to happen. And let's just say thank you to our sponsors and pay the respect. Yeah. So yeah, moving into slides. This should work now. Okay, yeah. Technology. Yeah. So that's me. A little bit about me. So I've been doing testing for quite a while now. I started 2006, sorry. As a game tester, so that was fun. I used to play games, and they pay me for that, so that was kind of insane to me at the time. Then I moved to more serious things, and at 2016, I ended up in CloudStack, joining CloudStack, and I was appointed to PMC in 2019. So yeah, I get paid to break computers. Basically, that's the picture is basically representing my day job. So it's quite a fun thing to do, actually. And on the personal side, I'm married. I have 2 lovely daughters, and in this my spare time, I just love doing sports, do usual hiking, just spending time with friends, like a normal guy. And yeah, I think that's about me. Now about CloudStack 4.18. So 4.18 has been a long-awaited one. It is going to be LTS. It's going to be part of our long-term support. So we did 4.17 earlier this year, and we kind of more focused there more on the stability and bug fixing things. So we did have quite a few new features as well, but we kind of focused on that. And for 4.18, we decided, as a community, decided to have a little bit more presence of new things and a little bit more new stuff coming in. So that's why it is a little bit taking some delay. And of course, it's a community effort, so a bit of attention and a bit of also love from people is kind of required to get things moving and to get them sorted and tested and merged in. So yeah, it's all about us to making it happen. So it's a community effort. So we do expect 4.18 to be somewhere around Q4 or next year at the beginning, maybe January. We'll see. As I mentioned, we do have quite a few new things going on, and I would really like to see them all make it in. Last but not least, let's have some kudos for Dan, who has stepped up as a release manager for 4.18, and he is taking the diligence of making it happen, coordinating between parties and dragging people in and basically making it happen. Right, a bit of disclaimer. As I mentioned, it's still work in progress. There is no fixed date for it. It will likely expect it to happen somewhere in January. Most likely. It's some of the things that I'm going to show may not make it. It will be really nice if we make it. That's the plan, but you know, it's up for us to make the effort to making it happen. So a bit of disclaimer that something you may see here might not actually make it to 4.18. So yeah, and yeah, last but not least, still it's a community effort. So it's down to us to make it as a group. Like, first one, so we did quite a few things in 4.18 and some things on the security side. So volume encryption was one of them. So basically, you can have disks now that are end-to-end encrypted. So currently, this is happening in libvirt, so it's KVM only. It's supported by quite a few. It's quite distributed within storages. You can use it with NFS, with local storage. You can use it with some custom products like Scale.io and others maybe. So with the feature offers some usual lifecycle operations with volume, which are supported. So you can create, delete, expunge, resize volume, that migration. With some actually some operations that involve secondary storage are not really supported because of the nature of the encryption. So you cannot just extract the template, the volume, and use it as a template. And migration is not really live migration is not supported at the time. The feature is offering based, so meaning you can create an offering for either root volume or data volume, and you can say this disk is going to be encrypted, and when you provision, actually the disk is going to do all the encryption right away. So just a note that it might take some time to do that initially, to create the disk and then encrypt it, because it's actually going through. And as it makes sense, the larger the disk is going to take a little bit more time to provision it. So yeah, most of these slides you already seen before in talks. So I'm just going to spend like 2-3 minutes on them. If you have questions for them, just find me or the person who was doing the presentation before or later yesterday, and we're going to have all your questions. Okay, this thing died. All right. Still on the security side, we now have end-to-end encryption between console proxy. So we utilize the CloudStack CA framework for this, and it's actually using the customer the authority that we already have to facilitate encryption between management and KVM hosts. So it uses the same certificate to validate the encryption between the console proxy and the VM. So now it makes the TLS authenticated connection, and all the traffic that is happening between CPVM and the guest VM is now encrypted. So whatever you type in there, it's not going to be visible anywhere. You're going to need a special key to see it actually. Yeah, and yeah, all the messages there, and yeah. So I think Nicholas did a talk on that yesterday. So me and him will be actually happy to answer any further questions if you like. That is just about to be merged, I think. So it's very likely it's going to be in the 4.18 release. And still on the same side of connectivity of console proxy. So we do have a new API now for making the console proxy connection. So before you need to go to the UI and dial a specific URL to do it. Now you have an API. I'm sorry, which basically means that you can actually export that out of CloudStack. You don't need to use the UI. You can just call the UI and get URL that you just need to distribute to your team, to whoever is going to use it. It is going to open a one-time session. So basically, when you open it, nobody else is going to be able to use the very same link. It's due to for some security to not be able to steal this session. So if somebody ends up somehow having it, it's not going to be able to use it. It also has some extra security token for further security purposes. So you're not going to be able to have to call the API without knowing this token and actually generate the HTTP resource. Right. Next one is autoscaling. So is it merged already, or it's just about to be merged? I think so. That is very, very likely to be in 4.18. We did, I think, on Monday talk about that. So it's so this is something that CloudStack really wanted for some time now, and it's the first sort of implementation of autoscaling in CloudStack. So it's still quite a few things to improve there, but it's a good starting point. So you can have you define your autoscaling group by setting up policies. And these policies have scale up, scale down policy, and then you have some conditions inside each of the policies. So you can have multiple policies for one group and multiple conditions in one per policy. It takes some counters for CPU, for memory usage and traffic and connections. It gets the CPU and memory usage directly from the host, from the statistics, and it gets the traffic-related one connections from the VR. So let's say, for example, you're going to have some web server running somewhere, and if the memory usage or the CPU usage gets more than 90, you're going to have a scale-up policy, and it's going to create a new VM in the same group. And it's gonna have some cooldown, and then it's gonna take some measurements again and figure out if it's good enough or need to scale up and scale down again. So each group has some attributes like minimum and maximum numbers. Let's say you can define like your maximum would be like 10 VMs or whatever is needed, and you can set up some custom durations for gathering statistics and having cooldown, and actually some cooldown for the VM to actually be up and there. If you have further questions, go to me or to Wei, and we will answer those about this feature. So we've been having affinity groups from quite a while in CloudStack. First, they were actually called affinity groups, but in really they were anti-affinity, so it was kind of messed up. But then we introduced actually affinity and anti-affinity group as a term in CloudStack, and now we have strict and non-strict. So we changed a little bit the definitions there. So now we have non-strict affinity groups, meaning with strict ones, you would either specify affinity or non-affinity for a specific host, meaning all the VMs will go inside to this host or not in this host. But with non-strict, it will actually first either go to it if it is affinity or not to it if it's non-affinity. And if it fails, it will actually proceed with it. So meaning if you have non-affinity group and you try to do that for specific host, but you know the separate one, if there's no separate host to facilitate that, it will still go to the host. So yeah, it's really good, and there's one attribute also added there to actually consider if a VM is stopped, to actually consider the last host or not. So by default, I think it's true. I could be wrong. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, so you might wanna, if you need to, you might wanna change that to false if required. Edge zones. So I think on Monday we had a lovely presentation on that. And the case has been made quite a few times on this one. It can be a little bit mind-bending for somebody that has been using CloudStack for a while, because we have the notion of zones, and now we kind of change it, and it's a completely different thing. So the regular notion of zone is supposed to be something big in CloudStack, and this is supposed to be something really, really small. What edge zones means is actually you get to the edge, to the end of your cloud, and have some resource, computing resource there, have some power there that is needed. So I think the case was made for a McDonald's store that don't really need connectivity with the centralized place all the time. So you can just be there in the site, on the McDonald's site or whatever. and process the orders and eventually come back to the center to report at some point. So it's really a lightweight zone that allows you to have a remote resource at remote places, and it's actually changing the notion to have a lot of these. You can end up with a lot of these rather than having just one zone, having all your resources in there. So it's a little bit twisted. And also it doesn't facilitate secondary storage, and there is no network configuration other than having connectivity to management. So that is supposed to happen out of band, and with no secondary storage, it basically means it's going to use direct download. So it's going to be KVM only. It will have an URL for your template, and it will download it when you ask. And of course, there will be limitations related to secondary storage, so you're not going to be able to export templates to move around and that sort of thing that you do with secondary storage. So it is going to be available with local storage and direct download, as I mentioned, and KVM. Of course, as well, if you have further questions, feel free to reach out to me, to Alex, or to Abhishek that did the call, and we'll be happy to discuss further. This thing had died again. UserData as a first class resource. I think that's already in. That one is already merged, right? So the UserData has been really custom for us. You need to, meaning that we kind of use it when you specify, when you deploy a VM, you always need to specify it. So you need to have it like predefined somewhere and just copy paste it all the time or figure out with a script. So now we have a first class object in CloudStack, meaning you can actually have entity that you can create in CloudStack and further use that in when you deploy a VM and manipulate it. Like you can edit it, you can set up, you can create, you can delete, and that sort of things that you usually can do with anything with CloudStack within CloudStack. It's create, update, delete URL actions. That's supposed to be in CRUD. Sorry about the language if that's not. So you can have some specific. Every UserData entity has a name, has a UserData as itself, and have some parameters custom parameters you can set up if you like, and then you can specify the main account as usual. So yeah, there are some changes in the UI that facilitates these new additions. So now you can, I think I have a slide for it, yeah. So this is how you create the UserData. You specify your parameters, you specify your data, and then when you create it, you get a nice entry that you can see, you can edit, you can delete, and then all the jazz. And then when you deploy, so this is VM deployment wizard, just the UserData snippet for it. So you see, you can select, it's just one UserData, but usually you can have a lot, and select between, and then you can add your custom values there, and then you can further see that in the VM when it's deployed. This is already merged, I think. And if you have questions, find me or Vladi, or I think Nicholas did it. I'm not really sure. So yeah, just find us, and happy to answer your questions. So this is something that is still work in progress, and it's still been requested quite a few times. We end up with a lot of people asking, so is it just safe to stop my management server or to restart it? Is it can something break? So we figured, yeah, why not have a feature about it to make it safe and to make it people to be actually comfortable pushing the button. And this actually came out from a GSOC idea, and we decided to build on the idea initially was just to have a simple shutdown mechanism, and we decided to build on this idea and to make it a full feature. I think David is working on it, so if you have questions, also find me or David. We're happy to answer some further questions. So the shutdown will now be available in the UI, so you're going to have a button. It's going to be available just for the admin user, of course. It's going to be per management server. So you can have multiple management server. You can log into a specific management server and decide I want to shut down you. The rest will be running just fine. Of course, not to mention, you can always go to Linux and type service stop CloudStack. It's still going to work. So it's just building on top of that. There's some new things about it. So we're introducing something called maintenance mode for a specific management server. So if you want to do something in a management server, you can go and say you're on maintenance now, and it's not going to take any jobs. So it's basically going to be offline in the CloudStack notion. It's just going to be there working, but not taking any actions. So you will be able to do whatever you want to this management service. Of course, you can go and cancel this maintenance mode. And there is some plans now to have some tooling in the infra tab to see actually what jobs are being monitored to have been managed by this server. So there is some plans to have something there to display all the jobs, so you have better idea is this management server actually running anything at the moment or not. And I think I forgot to mention, when you do press the shutdown, it's gonna initiate the process and it's gonna wait for all the jobs, all the asynchronous jobs that require maybe to go to VMware and do some stuff there and then come back. So it's gonna wait for all this to complete and then it's gonna shut down. As you can think, some problems may appear if there's an async job running in the background and you just simply stop it. So that's gonna basically fail in the CloudStack notion, but it may eventually succeed at the VMware side. So now it's gonna just wait for this and then come back and then safely shut down. All right, as mentioned, find us to talk more about this, and if you have questions, happy to take it. We did some goodies around the UI and how we manage global settings. So up until now, we had global settings. When you click on global settings, you get this huge list. And you need to find yourself what you're looking for. You need to use the search, and you need to actually know what you're looking for. You need to know the name of the global setting. Now we are introducing categories where we basically split everything in if it is compute related, if it is storage related, if it's network related. So you can have tabs now that you can browse all the topic related, category related settings for in CloudStack. There's some UI improvements there, and there's some input validation. I'm going to show you some pictures now, if this thing works. Come on. Okay, yeah. So that's, you might notice near the refresh button, there's logical now. If you switch that, it's going to get you back to the old style, like everything on one page. So with this logical thing, you see all the categories listed there. So if you choose storage, you get to see all the storage related ones, and you get some nice explanation there. As you see, there is now the true-false statement is now changed to this toggle, so it's much more easier to navigate. And there's some new changes also. So we have context-related global settings that are disabled, and if you enable the top layer setting, it's gonna enable also the subsequent global setting for this. So like for example, the additional VM configuration, that all these other settings are related to this sort of enable thing. So if you enable that, you're gonna be able to add values for the subsequent one. Some improvements here. So now you have a slider. Whenever you have like a percentage, you now have a slider, which is more convenient. And if you have multiple values for a global setting, now you have drop down that you can basically have all your options and not wonder what's the options that I need to put here. So now it's more convenient. And you have I'm sorry. If you have numbers, you have this little arrows that you can do up and down. And if you have noticed, there is a revert button for all these settings that you can revert simply to default, which is really neat one and really, really handy. I think this is it for that. Yeah, so this feature, guest OS support has always been a little bit of a pain if you need to add something. Usually this is managed by when you do upgrade, it's gonna add all your new guest OS support. But if you don't want to upgrade and you just need to add something, it's always a mess because you need to go to the database, you need to add all these records manually. So now we have an API for that. We have also UI support for it, so you will be able to do some validation and you will be able to add your record directly in the UI, which is really neat and handy. I'm just gonna skip through because I'm kind of running. We do have some additional OS support. Now we try to keep up with the newest and the latest one that are getting traction in the community. So we do support now for Rocky Linux 9 and Ubuntu 22. Both of these are supporting KVM hosts and management servers, so it will be there probably. I think there's a huge chance for this to make it in the release. And you will be able to use these distros if you like for CloudStack. And some new features that are a little bit small, but I just want to list them and to talk about quickly. Now there is this PR also for you to be able to configure custom MTU for your VR. So this is like maximum transition units for it's a networking setting. If you need to play that with that before it happened out of band, there is no such option in CloudStack. So now you will be able to do that. I think with a global setting and a zone setting that you can specify a custom MTU for a zone or for globally. You will be able to, there's a PR also for, I try not to say you will be able because it's still work in progress and it might not happen, but there's an initiative now going on for DNS, custom DNS for network. It's as simple as that. So if you want a custom DNS for a specific network, you will be able to add it now and to configure it. 2FA framework is something that is being worked on. We try to produce a framework to facilitate further 2FAs authentications, and we're starting now with Google Authenticator. So that is something that would be good to have, and I would personally love to see. Resource metrics framework is something a little bit bigger, but it's still under process. So it's gonna give you a new view, a new UI, new way to see metrics in the UI, and it's gonna show you not just metrics for hosts and zones and clusters for now that we have. It's gonna show you metrics for every resource, like for example for volume. You can see just the metrics for this particular volume, or for VR, you can go to the VR and just see the metrics for the VR. So it's going to be a little bit of rework there, but it would turn out quite better. And a small one, we have a live storage migration for Scale.io storage. This is just an addition, building on top on the feature that we did in the previous release. This thing died again.
You need to hurry.
Yes, quickly, I think that's the last one. We do have some bug fixes, quite a few bug fixes as well. That's a snapshot from last week, if I remember. So we still have 66 open, and we've closed quite a few. There's not just new features, there's also quite a few bug fixes, quite a few things going on, also small ones. So, and it still also has 60 open, so contribute, share some love, and let's make it happen. It's a combined effort. This is my last slide.
Sorry, we don't have time for questions.
Oh, Jesus.
Yes.
Yes.